Trump is goading us to impeach him. That's what he's doing. Every single day, he's just like taunting, because he knows that it would be very divisive in the country, but he doesn't really care. Just wants to solidify his base.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi today saying that President Trump obstructs justice every day by stonewalling House Democrats, and in doing so is trying to push Democrats towards impeachment. Angela, do you agree?
I agree that he is trying to get impeached. I believe that it absolutely would solidify his base. I still don't agree with Speaker Pelosi's, just her approach to this. I wish that she were a little firmer. Again, I think that is why.
You want her to try to impeach him?
I want her to at least be open to how she can on one hand say the House oversight efforts are important and we need to see them through, and then on the other hand say there's no grounds for impeachment. At that point, you're wasting resources on trying to determine what actually went wrong, because the purpose of those investigations is to determine wrongdoing, right? So you can't have one without the other. Just stop saying, you can say we don't know yet. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't say we shouldn't impeach.
It's interesting, Jackie, because, there have been in some polls an indication that the Democratic base is getting less and less enthusiastic about the election. We have a member of the Democratic base right here, and you see one of the reasons you seem a little less than enthusiastic because of Nancy Pelosi damping this down.
But she's also looking at independent polling, who are not as geared up for impeachment. So going beyond a primary, she's looking at her majority. She's looking at the folks in her caucus that don't want to impeach Trump. So she's really being pulled by both sides. You do have Trump, who does seem to be tempting the fates and really challenging the Congress and its oversight role, writ large, right? Yeah. And then she has her base that really wants to see, as Angela said, not necessarily going in, kind of a crazy impeachment kamikaze situation, but being open to the idea as a part of their congressional duties.
And speaking of Democrats trying to conduct oversight, this just in, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler is currently meeting with Democrats on his committee right now to discuss next steps regarding Attorney General Barr and former White House counsel Don McGahn. That's according to aides. And there really is a showdown right here. Do you think that the public just sees all this and thinks, it's all just partisan politics, or how do you see it playing out?
I think everybody is rushing towards impeachment. I do think there's arguments for it, but everyone in Washington is really focused on the second volume of this report, the obstruction volume, when really there needs to be more explanation of the first volume, how Russia tried to interfere in the election. And the Trump campaign needs to be held to account for all of these contacts that they did lie about. I still have outstanding questions about why Donald Trump acted like he wasn't aware of Moscow Trump Tower. There are real questions to how this campaign was conducted. There should be hearings on that, because you can only understand the obstruction part of the Mueller report if you understand the attempts at collusion that the Trump campaign wanted to cover up.
And there certainly were a lot of lies. There was one person talking about the Mueller report today, but not in the way that Amanda's talking about, and that is the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, saying that really it's time to just stop all of this. Take a listen.
Election interference was just one part in Russia's strategy to undercut the United States. And this administration has taken the problem head on.
And he went on to say, but when it comes to the Mueller part of this, case closed, it's over.
Yeah, and it was so interesting to hear him focus really just on the first part of the report. Despite what you're saying, he essentially said, let's look at this Russia narrative. It's a good news that there was no collusion, that was, ultimately the bottom line conclusion there. But at the same time, he's not addressing obstruction at all. He's hinting at these Democratic investigations that are ongoing, almost trying to conflate publicly the more decisive conclusion of the first part of the report with the second part, which he's really trying to ignore, it seems. But at the same time, he's trying to trumpet the Trump administration's efforts on combating Russian interference and talking about what Russia did in 2016 and 2018. That's something that you haven't heard the president talk about at all, right?
And who had a conversation with Vladimir Putin last week and apparently didn't raise this and joked about it. So Mitch McConnell and President Trump need to get on the phone here.
McConnell is if you read the report, which I understand most people haven't, that first volume is just littered with examples of Russians trying to make a Trump-Putin meeting happen. That was all they were focused on. And it's like, oh, we just kind of glossed over that. And now it's happening in real time. All the time.
But it was glossed over because it has been reported and reported and reported again. And I think people's consciences have been seared with a hot iron, to use a biblical term, because at this point, it's just like it's almost been normalized. We've talked about it so much. We've been screaming, Amanda, I think. But some people are just...
And then take a listen to this, because while Mitch McConnell was saying this today, Democrats, especially in the Obama administration, say that he was a wet blanket when it came to trying to warn the nation in 2016 about what was going on with the Russians. Joe Biden has said that he refused to be part of a bipartisan statement that sounded the alarm. Take a listen. Here's Biden talking about this last year.
Why don't we put out a bipartisan warning to Russia? Hands off, man, or there's going to be a problem. Mitch McConnell, who I get on with well and is a smart guy, Mitch McConnell wanted no part of having a bipartisan commitment that we would say, essentially, Russia's doing this, stop. Bipartisan.
So Democrats have been talking a lot today about why is Mitch McConnell doing this now when he was no help to them, at least according to Joe Biden and Barack Obama.
Right. And of course, McConnell has said that they did sign on to a letter, but the letter didn't reference anything about Russia. Can I just say, because I've been really hard on Joe Biden, this is Joe Biden's element where he flourishes. He's making foreign policy very clear, very attainable, very touchable to the layman. And I think it's super important, or layperson, it's super important for us to understand how tragic this was. If, in fact, the Obama administration, as has been reported now for, I think, at least 2 years, tried to have a bipartisan agreement that all of congressional leaders should come together and say, this is a serious flag and we need to pay attention to this. And if McConnell was, I'm not going to do this, that goes far beyond him wanting Obama to be a one-term president. That goes on to try to sabotage everything that goes forward. And McConnell, I think, at that point is implicated just like the Trump administration.
All right, everyone stick around.